So the other day I was watching my YouTube studio and I noticed a comment from one of my subscribers basically asking to make a health and armor system. Even though I've made them plenty of times before and I thought everybody would know that, apparently for beginners it's a little bit challenging. So in this video I already made the project. I'm just gonna go over with you guys how I made it, and you guys can kind of see how I usually implement those kind of things. If you're a beginner, don't be scared. I will show everything. You can just copy it if you want, but the main thing is that you have to learn from a tutorial. That's why I don't do a step-by-step, actually like writing it out as you guys usually see. I want you guys to actually learn from it and not just copying. So I'm gonna open my project and I'll see you guys there, okay? So we're in our project right now, and as you can see, I have a couple of components set up already. Now, don't be scared. We're going to go over them one by one. But the first thing we want to do is we want to divide this into 3 different parts. So the first one is going to be setting it up in our player character itself. Then step 2 is adding the UI for it. And then in step 3 is where I show you guys some examples on how to use it. So let's start with step number 1. So I'll open my player character. And the first thing that I did was I set up my health and my armor. So in the variables, you would just need to add 4 float values. So first one is our health, our max health, armor, and max armor. That's the first thing you need to do. Now I set my max armor and max health to 100. That's going to be my max value. If you, for example, look at a progress bar, right? The end value is our max, and then our health and our armor is our current value. So the actual health that you have is going to be your health and armor, and then the maximum that it can be is going to be our max health and max armor. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll try to explain it more once we're at the UI stage. But the first thing I did was just set those up, max health, max armor at 100. I went over to our begin play, and I just added them to it. Excuse me. Okay. I basically set them as I dragged them out, set health and set armor, and I just dragged in the max values for that. Okay. Then on the second thing is I close this down. I made a little blueprint interface. If you don't know how to do it, you right click blueprint interface. And if we open this up, it's pretty simple. All we have is a couple of functions here for the health. So I had a add health, and I added a input for the amount. So how much health you want to add. Then I duplicated it. You can just right click, duplicate. Wait, copy and paste, sorry. Control C, Control X, Control V. I just duplicated them and I said remove health. It's same thing for the input, just an amount. Same thing for the armor, add and remove. And then we had a get health. This is what we're going to use in the UI to display our health. We had a get armor, so I duplicated this one. But for the get health and get armor, make sure that you have a output and not an input. Very important. So you need an output that is going to be our health. For armor, output is going to be our armor. And then we have get armor status, but I'll come back to that later. So after we have done that, we have it set up. We have the interface. I went into my character again. And in my class settings, I just added this interface. And then if you open on the left side the interfaces tab, you can actually implement all the interfaces. So it looks a lot, right? It's going to look like a lot, but it's going to be pretty simple to follow. So don't be scared. I'm going to show you guys what it is, okay? So this is all we're going to have to need. So we're going to start with the add health. All I did was I dragged out my health value. I said add to it our health that we want to add. And then you clamp the float between 0 and our max health. So in case you want to increase your max health, it will adjust itself. Otherwise, if you just say 100 and you want to do 125 health, you will have to change that in here. So that's why we have that variable. And then we just set our health. Pretty simple. Remove health is a little bit more complicated because you want to calculate if you die or not. So all I did was get my health minus our health that we want to remove. Once again, clamp this between 0 and our max health, and then set that up as our health. And then after that, I set if it's equal to 0, so if your health reaches 0, if it's true, I printed a string that just says you are dead. And if it's not, just you are hit. That's it. And then I just basically copy and pasted these two for our armor. And I just took my event from add armor. Same thing, armor plus clamp it, set it up. If it's more than 0, I'll explain this in a second. Don't worry about the booleans just yet. Just implement this function. So just add armor, blah, 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 set it up. And for the remove, it's the same thing as before, just removing the armor and setting that to be our armor. Okay? Once we have that done, we can actually get started on the UI. So for the UI, it's pretty simple. All we have to do is go into our, create a widget for our HUD. If you already have a HUD, you can just add it to it. But if you don't have anything, this is kind of the way I usually do it. I add a master widget and I just put everything inside of there to keep it like nice and clean. So I just added a canvas panel in my HUD. And then I added my widget, but we don't have that yet. So I created another widget for health and armor. And if I open this up, it looks complicated. It's really not. I just added the vertical box. I then added a horizontal box for each progress bar. I added a size box to kind of keep the progress bar in one size. And I set it up to be 450 and 10 in the height. And then I added a progress bar in there and I set it to be PB health as the variable name. And I set up the text to be txt text. And then after you have that kind of set up, I add a little bit of padding. And then I basically just grabbed this horizontal box and just duplicated it for our armor. And then I just renamed my progress bar to be armor and my text to be text. Okay? So txt armor. Now, once you have those kind of things, just set them up to whatever color you want. It really doesn't matter. The first thing I'll do is go into my PB health. And if you go to your percent on the right, I created a binding for that. So if I go to my graph, you can see my bindings up here. So the first one is going to be get health percent. And all you would have to do is just get your player character, get your health. And because progress bars always are between 0 and 1, and we have our health, which is currently like between 0 and 100, I just divided it by 100, so we get 0 to 1. If you have different values, you might be better if you use a map range clamped and just add another output for our max health. But in this case, I don't need it, so I'm not going to do it. So for my armor, for our progress bar for our armor, it's going to be the same thing in the graph where we just have our get player character, get armor, divided by 100 and set that up. So that's going to be those 2% done. Now for the text itself, it's also pretty simple. I just went into my text itself, and for our text, I set up a binding. And in my graph, I got my player character. I just got arm for wait, let me go to health first. Okay, for my health, I just say get health and I display it to text instantly. If you don't want to have decimal points behind the number, just disable use grouping and set our fractional digits to 0. That way you won't get any decimal points behind it. What's going on with me today? Now for my armor, I did the same thing, just get armor to text. Once again, disable grouping, set fractional digits to 0, and you're good. Now, if we go in game, once you have all of that, there's one more thing you need to do to actually see it happen. First thing you want to do is go to your HUD again, and you want to add that widget. So in my case, W health and armor. And the last thing you need to do is go to your third-person character or in your player controller, it doesn't matter. And on the begin play, I just created the widget and added it to the viewport. Okay? And after all of that is done, you now have your health on screen. Now, in order to actually see if it works, I created some damage boxes right here. I'll quickly show you what I did. I just added 2 materials for the color. I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to do that. Then I opened my demo box healing. All I did in here was just add a box collision. When we overlap with it, I set a timer to add the health to the player. If you want to add or remove health, you just say get player character, add health. That was a function that we created in the interface. And you could just say how much you wanted to heal by. And when we end the overlap box, I just clear and invalidated the timer. Okay? Now for my damage, it's a little bit more complicated. That's where that boolean came in. If you want to have a game where you first take away your armor and then do the damage, we'll set that up right now. But if you don't want to have that, you can just skip forward towards somewhere towards the end where I'm just going to show you how it works, where it just shows you how to damage the player health. But if you want to have a little check armor first before depleting your health thing, this is kind of how I set that up. So the first thing I did was I went into my player character and I just added is armor depleted. It's a little boolean in the variable step. And in my armor itself, where you have the events, I just checked that if we add armor, we want to check that if it's more than 0, our armor is not depleted. So we can take away armor first. If we remove armor, we just check, is it equal to 0? Because if it's 0, your armor is gone, right? And if that is true, I just set my armor depleted to be true. And if it's not, we just set it to be not. Okay? Pretty simple. Then I went into my interface and I added one more event or one more function, and that was just get armor status. And that one went to an output, which is armor depleted. And what that basically is going to do is if we go into our damage box now, and we go to our begin overlap. So this is when we overlap with our box, right? We're setting up the same timer, but instead of taking away health instantly, what we did is we just got our armor status. We checked if we have armor available. And if we did, we took away our, if we had armor available, this will go into the false and we remove our armor first. Okay? If our armor is 0, it goes to be true, and we just remove health. That's kind of what I did. It's a little bit of a workaround. Now, by all means, do what you want to do with this. This is not a gospel. This is just the way that I do it. And then when you enter overlap, we just clear the timer. And after everything is done, you should have, let me do this. If I go into my damage box itself, you will see that I start to take damage on my armor first. And if I take some health and I go into my healing, you can see that I'm healing up. And now if I stay in my damage box, you will see on the top left, it will actually show when it hits 0 that we are dead. So you would probably have some play a death animation and probably go to the main menu or say, okay, you have died, do you want to retry? That's basically in your player character. Right here is where you would implement that when health reaches 0. And with all that, that's pretty much how you set up health and armor. Now, this was suggested by a viewer, so if you guys need some help with something, do let me know. I read all the comments and I really want to help you guys out. So all you would have to do is just go into the comments and say what you want to see from me next. And also, if you guys feel free to leave a like and maybe subscribe to the channel, as it will help me out quite a bit. But with all that being said, I hope you guys have a great day. Bye bye now.